Hello, this is EntSpeak, and this is a tutorial on how to make use of the lava substance for space engineers. Now, basically I've opened Substance Player, which is free from Allegorithmic. You can go to their website and download it. Again, absolutely free. And with that you can go to what's called Substance Share and download substances from those and tweak them. They won't work like this because they're not set up to work for space engineers necessarily, but so this is one that I have tweaked to work for space engineers. This is an existing texture. Let me open it here. Recent. This is lava, and this was created by Janine Smith, an artist in France, and created it basically, from what I understand, to be able to be animated in Unity or in film or some sort of CG environment. Obviously that won't work for space engineers because we can't animate voxels. So there you go. I modified it to be able to create variations on lava textures, so you can suit it to your taste. Now, a couple setup things within Substance Player that you need to do to make things a little clearer. If you notice right now, this may look a little strange. It looks like the hot areas are raised and these are a little lower, and that is because of normals. The normal map here. You zoom in. And let's increase the resolution so it's not quite so blocky. You see this is an OpenGL normal. This is what Space Engineers uses for the normals, is this format. But this, right now, Substance Player is set up to work with a DirectX normal. So what you need to do to change that is go to Materials, Default, Edit, and this thing here. If you haven't opened it already and closed it, it will pop open. The next time you do it, it won't. You'll have to slide it in from the side. But you want to go to DirectX Normal and turn that off, and voila, you can see it has changed. Now there are other things in here that won't really be useful, that might be fun to play with, but they don't do anything really. And I don't know what to, let's put that back to 1. I think it was at 1. Not more intensify, and this is also scale, but unfortunately, because we do have a height mapping here, but unfortunately Keen has not implemented that element of PBR textures. If you look at the side of this, is flat, but this gives it a great dimension, a feeling of height, but they don't do it. We just work off the normals. I've created a feedback thing on that. If you are interested, you can vote for that. If we can get them to add parallax mapping and virtual, height displacement for voxel textures, but that's neither here nor there. Here you can tile it to see what it looks like tiled. That's useful. So to close that, just slide it, and then if you want it again, just grab it from the side. You want to kind of be careful if you don't want to grab the window, but just inside here can be tricky. There you are. So that's set. So now that looks better. And let's make that to fit. This is the 3D window, the way you work in a 3D window. Left click to rotate around. You can set this to various objects. You can see it on the cube. You can see it on. You can load in your own meshes if you want. You can look it on a sphere. But for voxel textures, I like to use just the plane, high-res plane, and go from there. Now, so that's the this is the background environment. This may not be on when you. Oops, I need to open that side window again. It may be like that when you first open Substance Player. You click on Environment, Edit, and again Hopefully that opens up. If not, you just go over here, drag it over, and turn it on. You can turn down the lights. See how it'll look in the dark versus in the daytime. And this rotates that around. But you can also do that without. You can Control Shift right click and drag. Click on the right mouse button and drag, and that'll move that around as well. So let's return this to. You can just type this in 0. There we are. And that's the 3D window in a nutshell. For our purposes, that'll work. This is the 2D view. And what this does is allow you to view the individual maps in 2D. This is the normal map. You've seen that. This is the color map. And this is something that I created. This is the actual output from that was in the original Substance. I had to create this because the way that emissivity works in Substance Designer, which is the application in which the Substance was made, emissivity is color. So all of this lava section here is actually not in the color map. The base color map, I can show you here, we have the base color. See, that's gray? That's all this. And the emissivity is added in the emissive map here. That obviously doesn't work for Space Engineers, which uses a mask, a grayscale image for emissivity. Darker is not emissive. The lighter it goes, the more emissive. So what I did was found a way to combine the color from the emissive map into the base color so you can see what this is going to look like. And I made the emissive mask just a mask so you can get it as bright as possible in all of the hot areas. So there's color. And again, this will shift as you change the parameters. There is the normal. Again, this is an OpenGL normal. You can tell that by the way the red is here on kind of this way. If it were an OpenGL, it would look different. And the normal would look inverted. Where things go low, you would see them raised. Whereas with an OpenGL normal, it's kind of what you see is what you get, which is nice. This is the gloss map. And because of the way that Keen has incorporated PBR textures, the workflow that pretty much everybody uses now for it is metal roughness. So Substance Designer, when you're working in the metal rough, obviously uses a rough mask and not a gloss mask. I mean map. So you have to, the gloss map is the inverse of the roughness. I can even show you the roughness. It's here. So it's just, you know, the opposite. So what I've done is, so that you can see what the gloss is doing, because you can't change that as a parameter, I added an output so that you can see it. And that's, so it inverses it and converts it to linear, which is works with the DDS compression for normal gloss. It's converted to linear. And this does make it inherently darker, which is something, because gloss in Space Engineers is really, really sensitive. You almost have to have these all the way down, otherwise it shines quite a bit. So I'm trying to recreate that here so that you don't have to do it in Photoshop or some other app in order to get it to look right. Then we have the ambient occlusion. The original Substance didn't have ambient occlusion. I added it because in chatting with Dr. Octagonopus about lava, the lava that he uses glows. It's really kind of an amazing thing, and I didn't know how to do that. I was just using your traditional approach to, you know, if it's in the emissive, it's all in the emissive. It's not entirely true. Oddly enough, there's something about doing this with the ambient occlusion as well. So if where you want it to glow, you want the ambient occlusion to be completely black. Don't ask me why. That's just the way it works. For some reason, that seems to punch up and really kind of, it's very odd. It gives the glow this kind of punch to it. And then the emissivity mask, which basically the ambient occlusion is an inverse of the emissive. And where it is white here, that is where it will glow. You can see that as I line it up here. You can see that glow. The next thing that we have here in the 2D is the CM file. Now you can't see anything. So what you need to make sure to do is to unselect display alpha channel. I've not included the metal in this because it's just black. It's a black texture. It is included in the CM underneath, but it's just basically black, and it's a strangely enough, the substance itself uses a white one, but that doesn't work for Space Engineers. We don't need it to be metal. Then we have the NG, and again, you can't see the gloss portion of it, but this is just to kind of see what you will see when you open this first in Photoshop. This is what you'll see. And then the most important thing is here on the ADD, the additional maps, you have the ambient occlusion, the emissive, and the quote dirt texture, which I don't use on this and don't entirely understand. And the important thing is that this be green. That's how you know your emissive is going to work. This again is something that I learned from Dr. Octagonopus. The lighter the green, the more emissive. You can have shades if you want in it, but for lava, you know, you want all this just to be as emissive as possible. So those are all the 2D views. So let's go back here to our color, and we'll go down to the parameters. Now the first parameter you see here is the output size. This is important. When you export, you want to make sure this is at 2048 by 2048. Now, you may not want to change parameters at this resolution, but I will usually work at a lower resolution while I'm changing the parameters, and then up it at the end, or up it once I've changed the parameter, because for this one in particular, it seems to change how it looks, so that's not good. So if you change something, you might want to go back up to the higher resolution, wait for it to compute, and see what it's done. And that seems to work better than trying to work at this resolution. So I'm going to down this to 1024 by 1024. The random seed I have for this substance doesn't really... Oh, yes it does. That's cool. When I was doing this before, it didn't really do anything. That's very interesting. So it changes the underlying pattern for your texture. So that really opens things up, which is nice. So when you create a lava texture, it won't look, if you use the random seed, it won't look exactly like, even if you, no matter what changes you do here, it will never look exactly like somebody else's lava texture, which is nice. And maybe on different planets you want to have different lava textures. So that's the random seed and the output size. And this is temp high and temp low. Now, I think this may have been due to the way that it worked before, but temp low changes the temperature of the what are now the dark areas. And temp high changes what are the temperature of these areas. So at temp low at 0, temp high at 1, that's what this looks like. Now if I reduce temp high, you see we lose it and we get a pretty, you know, cool, it's all pretty cooled down. I liked the way that looked all the way up at the top there. And if you wanted to, you could also increase the temperature of the cooler areas. You see, and that kind of slowly decimates those cool areas and adds more of that. I don't like that, so we'll go back down to say like about here for fun. And that looks really good. And again, there may be variations on this you might want to use, and so the textures will work together. The great thing about this is these are seamless, so these will tile perfectly. And then if you make changes using the same random seed, it will butt up and will seem to be just kind of a seamless transition between varying states, which is nice. So that's temp low and temp high. If we bring both up all the way, you get that really, really heavy molten lava. And then you can bring down, make some of those reds a little more red. Bring that in. And lower it more to get kind of little dark spots, which is nice. Yep. Well, again, let's go back to what we had before, just so we can see some of these other things. In fact, let's bring it all the way down so I can show you the next parameters, which are the cracks, or as Janine spelled it, cracks with no C in the middle. These add cracks in the surface here of the crust. As you can see these showing up. Yeah, and right now they're not very deep. But if you want them to kind of show some stuff, and again, this is where the resolution does something interesting. See, I like this, but if you put this at 2048 by 2048, it doesn't do this. It does something completely different, and I don't know why. So we change that, it suddenly brings all of that together. Now this is cool too. So if you want this, what you'd have to do is export these and then go into Photoshop and up-res to 2048 by 2048 in Photoshop. I wish you could achieve this without that, but the substance is very odd this way. So that's the cracks, and the higher the density, the kind of the thicker, the more lava shows up in them. That's really kind of nice, kind of cool. But I think, oh, I've got the resolution up. Okay, I'm going to go back down to 1024 by 1024, and of course it will change it how it looks entirely. But let's go back, and so that's cracks, and let's go back and see how that all looks with this. See, that looks very interesting as well, but again, that's something you'd have to do for by up-resing it in Photoshop. You come here, and it'll bring all those cracks a little closer together. But I like that. I like how that's kind of broken up the texture of the cool areas. And this is flow distortion. Basically, this is the curviness of these flows. Right now it's set to max. If I lower it down all the way, you can see it just becomes straight lines, which may be useful in some instances. Maybe somewhere in the middle. You know, you can make it slightly warped. And do that. Again, let's briefly increase this back up to 2K. There we go. That's nice. We'll like that. We'll keep it. And that's flowing. And now we will look at crust. And you have three parameters here: crust wear, crust occlusion, and crust moon. these are very, very subtle things. It's been very difficult for me to figure out what exactly they do. So what I'm going to do is reduce all these to 0 so we can kind of get a fresh start. And I really cannot see a difference. There was some subtle changes here, bringing that all the way up. So I wonder if it just adds little. It's a very subtle effect. We bring up the occlusion. And again, it's a very, very subtle effect, if anything. We can tweak with these. I'm not sure exactly what they will do. And then one of the most important things in my book with these textures is being able to control the gloss. Right now these are very, very shiny. And these are inputs that I put in myself because, you know, Space Engineers is very, as I said, finicky about gloss. The slightest bit of information in this channel and it becomes, you know, really glossy. If you look at, if you're in Photoshop and you look at a levels filter, you'll see the top 3, low, high, and mid, and then on the bottom, those are ins, and the lower 2 are outs. Low out, high out. This basically represents the low out on that, and this is the high out. Actually, I'm wrong. This is the high out. This is the low out because this is inverted. So if I want to decrease the gloss, I make a change. You see that gets darker, and the gloss goes away. Now you may want it like that. You know, you may want little bits. Of gloss in there. You can decrease it, or you can increase it. You know, it's your taste. This is a little very, very shiny. Wonder what happens if, and you can, you know, play with things in between. You can invert it, so because you can see if you lower the gloss here, the light areas are getting darker, right? You know, that's the cooled down sections. But you can also bring up the kind of invert it. This basically inverts it. You've got a lot of gloss there, but a lot of that, you've got this, the emissive section is glossy, whereas it was the opposite. You can lower that now. Keep some of the gloss on the emissive section. We really want to bring that down now. Quite heavily for the cooled down sections. There we go, and let's bump this up to the 2048 to see what that does. And there you go. As you can see, when you've made changes to these things, the emissive has changed, the color has changed, all this to match. So this is what makes it very, very interesting. You don't have to recreate all of this stuff on your own. And now, once you've got something you like, you know, you can set that. And so you, again, make sure it's a 2048 by 2048. Then you want to export as bitmap. And you're going to want to unselect all of these except for these three. Choose your outputs. Oops. Choose your folder you want to output. And you want to get rid of this and name it what you want. You can name it, you know, SE Lava if you like, but you want to get rid of this dash because it's creating basically two dashes. I want there to be only one dash there, otherwise the computer will get confused when you are, there we go. Or you can just name it Lava 03. And having this %O there will add that dash, that underscore ADD underscore NG underscore CM. And the format, I usually export it as a TIFF. It does have an option if you're looking for DDS, but the format that it uses for DDS doesn't work for Space Engineer, so you're better off putting it in some uncompressed format like Targa or TIFF or something along those lines, and then using Photoshop or whatever conversion method you use for your DDS files to convert it there, because you don't want to use a compressed format and then compress it again into DDS. So then you just hit export, wait, and there you have it. You have your three files. Now if I go to that, I see textures, I see lava outputs. There's others here from doing this. Here we are. These are your TIFFs. Now we can open this in Photoshop. I could open all of them in Photoshop. And there are. And you have your gloss and your normal. You have your color and your metal. And you have your ambient occlusion, emissive, dirt. There's nothing in there. And your alpha, which does nothing for voxel textures. And there you go. And then you create your voxel material as you would. And add it to your planet as you would. And that is how this substance works. I hope this is helpful, and that I'm excited to see what people can come up with.